There are many episodes of SpongeBob that proved to be ahead of their time in regards to the lessons they were trying to teach. But in the day and age of the internet, I would say there's one particular episode that stands head and shoulders above the rest. Because not only is the episode in question meant to be an allegory for the internet, but it ended up being more right in how people would use it than the writers could have ever known. And today, I'd like to go over this episode of SpongeBob and specifically how relevant the lessons it teaches are to modern internet culture. And obviously there will be spoilers for said episode ahead. So if for any reason you don't want to know what happens, you know what you should probably do. Okay, so somewhat surprisingly, the episode I'm talking about here doesn't actually come from the golden age of SpongeBob, aka the first 3 seasons. Instead, it's from the 9th season of the show, specifically the episode Bulletin Board. Now, just for those of you who don't know, in the episode SpongeBob puts up a giant bulletin board in the Krusty Krab to encourage community, allowing many people who would never otherwise speak to each other to have a chance to interact. Sounds familiar, doesn't it? But either way, at first everything goes well, with everybody using the bulletin board for good purposes and overall being nice to each other. But then things start going downhill when a mysterious P*7 starts posting what seem to be extremely rude insults, which starts encouraging everybody else to do the same. Then from there, everything falls apart as people get insulted and attacked left and right until a brawl nearly breaks out between Squidward and Bubble Bass, at which point SpongeBob realizes the grim reality of what's happened. In his own words, the bulletin board has become a bullying board, which makes everybody else wake up to what they've really been doing. But it doesn't end there either, because SpongeBob, Squidward, and Mr. Krabs decide to confront P*7 for corrupting the original purpose of the bulletin board and turning everybody against each other, only for it to turn out to be Patrick. Yeah, not really a surprise there. But it also turns out that Patrick wasn't actually trying to insult anyone and that, being as slow-witted as he is, didn't put important context into his posts, making everybody take what he was saying the wrong way. And having had enough of all the damage the bulletin board has caused, Mr. Krabs opts to get rid of it, seeing it as way more trouble than it's worth. Okay, so obviously there's a lot to unpack here, because this episode isn't exactly subtle in its allegory. But that doesn't mean what it's saying isn't true, because it very much is. At first, the bulletin board is a great place for the community to come together, but a couple of bad apples quickly turn it into a toxic place of festering hate, and nobody even realizes it until SpongeBob calls them out on it. And unfortunately, that does happen way too often on the internet. Somebody starts something with good intentions and is initially used for that intended purpose. But if they're not careful, it can quickly become a perverse imitation of what it was supposed to be, with everybody being turned against each other. And just like in the episode, many don't realize or accept the truth of the situation until things have gone way too far already. And honestly, the episode is pretty charitable in the way everything spirals out of control, because while Patrick instigated everything by accident with his posts being taken the wrong way, there are many on the internet who set out to ruin things and make people angry just because they can. I mean, there's a reason the term trolling has become such popular internet slang, because it perfectly sums up people who want to ruin things just for the heck of it. And sure, It isn't unheard of for something to be taken out of context and be seen as mean or hateful when it wasn't supposed to, but more often than not, the internet can become a terrible place because of people deliberately trying to start arguments and turn people against each other. And it often ends exactly the way it does in the episode. Bulletin boards and friendly chats turn into bullying each other. But another interesting thing about the episode is the customers' changing attitude in regards to it. Because once again, everything starts off as a friendly way for people to interact and get to know each other. But as soon as things start going downhill, everything changes. For example, P*7 is the first person to seemingly post something negative, and this only encourages others to do the same. One customer even outright says, "I want to express the worst side of myself." And why, you might ask? Because nobody will ever know it's him doing it. He can be as mean and rude as he wants and never pay any consequences for it. And on that topic, some people even come to admire P*7 specifically because he's anonymous. As if he's braver for some reason because he won't put a real name to his posts, making him become something of a martyr in the eyes of many. As Bubble Bass himself says, "You may not like what P*7 has to say, but you have to agree that he keeps it real. He's a true hero for our troubled times." In other words, just because he expressed a different opinion and for no other reason, people admire him and believe what he says is true. And this happens all the time on the internet. People make others they know nothing about out to be their hero just because of random things they said, regardless of whether those things are true or even make any sense. So as a result, people will end up taking the stupidest things to be fact, just because somebody on the internet said it. And that's not even getting into how most people take advantage of being anonymous to say and do things they would never do otherwise if their name or face was attached to it, and how many misattribute that being anonymous as hiding something noble. And that's what also leads to one of the biggest corrupting factors of the bulletin board. Gossip becomes gospel. As far as the customers are concerned, if it is written on the board, it is 100% concrete fact, and no amount of evidence to the contrary can change that. They even say point blank, "Hey, it's on the board, and the board is never wrong," and follow that creed to the letter. As a result, they even stop ordering food from the Krusty Krab, a place most people in Bikini Bottom love, just because somebody said it, quote, "smells like stinky armpits." And once again, though obviously exaggerated, this kind of thing does happen on the internet all the time. People will take anything they see as fact, no matter how obviously wrong it is, and go along with something just because everybody else does. To put it simply, people can be sheep, and this episode perfectly shows what happens when they start listening to the wrong people and just blindly believe everything they read or hear, no matter what. And finally, there's the role Mr. Krabs plays in the episode. Because at first he encourages the bulletin board because it's making him money. Even after P*7 starts bringing out the worst in people, Mr. Krabs keeps encouraging them because he can make extra money selling pencils and paper to those that suddenly want to post something. In other words, he's enabling toxic behavior for profit. And it's only when the board and the mentality it creates turns everybody against his restaurant and have plenty of pens and paper of their own, that he starts to regret the whole thing and wants to take it down. Yeah, I don't think I even need to explain what that's an allegory for. All I'll say is, it does pay to encourage hatred, until it inevitably backfires on you. Alright, so to put it simply, more people in this day and age should not only see this episode of SpongeBob SquarePants, but take its lessons to heart, because it may just be one of the most relevant in the entire history of the show. Because as I already went over, this episode perfectly shows, through allegory, how a wonderful invention like the internet can be used and abused by the wrong people, as well as how it encourages blind loyalty and belief in strangers, which can quickly cause a once great thing to become a dangerous, toxic place, enabling irrational hatred and hostility in everyone and everything. And unfortunately, most of the time there's no SpongeBob around to wake people up to the reality of what they've become. I guess all I'm trying to say is, if you're watching this video, be careful on the internet. Be thankful that you have such a wonderful invention at your fingertips, and avoid all the Mr. Krabses and P-Star 7s out there at all costs. Because this episode tried to warn us all of what would happen if we did listen to them. And considering how divided and cynical our society has become, it would seem that most didn't or weren't able to take those lessons seriously. Okay, I think I'll end the video there. And sorry this was different and more serious than my usual fare, but I figured this was something that needed to be said. So now it's your turn to tell me. Do you believe the Bulletin Board episode of SpongeBob SquarePants is the perfect cautionary tale against the dangers of the internet? Or do you believe there are other things out there that have done it better? Or, alternatively, do you believe the episode missed the mark entirely and that I'm giving it too much credit? Please feel free to let me know in the comments below. And please keep in mind that you do not have to agree with this video or anything I said in it. I respect your opinions as a fellow human being, and all I ask is that you do the same in turn, and we don't have to agree on everything in order to do that. And thank you all for watching. I really greatly appreciate it, and I hope to see you all next time.